Welcome to another episode of the Unicorns Podcast. I'm your host, Justin Kelly. Today on the show, we're bringing together two very different worlds that actually overlap more than people realize, building high-growth companies and building personal wealth. On one side, D'Angelo Harris, partner at Think and Grow, working with founders and leadership teams at some of the fastest growing tech companies in the market, helping them scale, hire and perform at a higher level. And on the other side, Arjun Paliwal, founder of InvestorKit, who's helped hundreds of Australians build serious wealth through property using a highly data-driven approach. On the podcast, we'll unpack what high performers are doing differently when it comes to scaling businesses, building wealth, and making better decisions in uncertain markets. They're also members of the exclusive Pillars Club in Sydney, where I'm certain they're in the centre of all the deals being done behind closed doors. So let's get into it. Gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thank you, my friend.
Thanks for having us.
Arjun, I want to start with you, if I may. You are the founder of InvestorKit. You've built a very strong reputation around property investing and helping people build serious portfolios without the guesswork. What are you focused on right now?
Of course. So InvestorKit is a group of businesses across the property, finance, and just recently launched the insurance space.
Okay.
And so we're all about helping people build, optimize, and then protect their wealth when it comes to mainly driven assets like property investing. And really what we're getting up to now is we've been on a journey over the last 8 years where we've generated Aussies more than $500 million in equity and helped purchase just under 3,000 properties for Australians across the country. And so what that's meant is that we're on this journey of going, hey, we found a few ways to create equity, create it in a way that outperforms the national averages, help people diversify their portfolio, help people become borderless investors. So they could be sitting in Sydney, but have opportunities in their property portfolio across the country, and then do so with a concierge and research data-driven experience. So they have their time-poor lives supported. And just like as you would at home, the decisions between cooking a meal versus going out and having it sorted for you, 5-star, fast, efficient, with friends, having a laugh and just getting on with life. That is essentially us from a property perspective. Someone can go out and just feel like their portfolio, their wealth creation, their direction's all taken care of.
And so if you think about your business and what you do, what are people getting wrong about property investment right now?
There's 3 big mistakes I'm seeing happen a lot. Like number 1 is people are reacting to the news all the time, the headlines. And so when people are reacting to headlines, they've got to understand there's a big issue called statistical significance in data. And what that essentially means is someone is using a headline for the country, but people forget the population spread of Australia is actually quite poor. And so if you look at it, 2 cities and their surrounds represent almost 50% plus of the population. So when someone says Australia is going into this territory of housing or Australia is going through a boom time, you can still buy wrong when the country's going through a boom time because it might be just a few cities that make the boom show. But you can also go wrong and hold back and not do anything and be in inaction and fear because the media headlines say the country's slowing down, when really there are more than 80% of the markets across the country that might offer great opportunities, but 20% from a naming of cities wise makes you feel like it's not, but the whole country's headline represents something quite weak. So that's the first part, is that data analysis piece and people reacting to the headlines. The second part is people cut corners because they're not taking care of this whole journey from end to end like experts do, or they don't have the knowledge to do the things that experts do. So example, I use the analogy we had before of the eating in and eating out, right? How often does the chef get the restaurant's recipe wrong when they're serving that main dish all the time versus when you're trying out the dish for the first time and trying to make it at home? Like me, I get those restaurant dishes wrong all the time when I try it myself. And so the idea with property investing, it's much the same. You might buy a home in a main road. You might buy a property too close to the cemetery. You might buy a property in a flood pocket. You might buy a property and overpay for it. And so the common mistakes that people think is uncommon because they think property is forgiving, it goes up, they make mistakes that set them back many years. And look, the final thing I would say is that people are actually just looking at property investing and being too comfortable, meaning it's the within my reach, within my touch, within the suburbs I know of. And the thing is that borderless investing is the highest chance for you to be a successful investor. Because if you're in 2022, as an example, sitting in Sydney and Melbourne, your world around you is not looking so positive because interest rates go up and these two markets slow quite considerably for the years to follow. But had you just been in a different location, i.e. Perth, the market's risen by almost 60 to 80%, depending on which suburbs, over those 3 years to follow. So it just shows that because you are not aware, or you're in the wrong town, or you weren't borderless, you've missed out on life-changing gains.
Once someone gets a bit of early success, where do they usually come undone?
That's a really good question. Firstly, people tend to feel like they've had the best chances of picking markets and doing certain things. And so as a result, they go into the self-diagnosing phase of going, hey, I've done it right before. Well, I see those same signals, and they realize they're just looking at the wrong data. And they make mistakes. And a common one is this. People have looked at certain things and said, wow, that seems really undervalued. It seems cheap. One example of that is Melbourne units. Between 2015 and 2020, Melbourne units did not grow a lot or even went backwards. So for 5 years, people are like, wow, what a great deal. These units are cheap. $500,000 to $600,000 for units in the middle of CBD in one of our biggest cities in the country. You've got cafes, you've got good food, and unfortunately, Sydney-siders, I love Sydney, but Melbourne has better coffee too. And so
I think you're right. You're definitely
the magic
right.
is what they call it there.
Love a magic.
That's it, right? So from that perspective, you got all this great lifestyle for so cheap, and you think, well, I bought my first property so cheap, and it was a good yield, and it was something early in its cycle. I should go and do this now. And guess what? 5 years on, they're still the same price. So that's a big mistake that I'm finding, people are making. And what goes wrong when you've had a bit of success, you rely on these formulas, but those formulas weren't the thing that caused you to succeed to begin with.
And how much of this is actually discipline versus strategy?
The strategy part is where the mistakes are the most common. The discipline part is where opportunity cost comes up. So from a discipline perspective, the opportunity piece is that people go and have some success in property investing, coming back to that previous mistake. And then what ends up happening is that the discipline part that's missing is in the opportunity cost piece, where they wait for everything to align like it once did, and hoping that when those conditions return to what they once were, I'll do the next thing and I'll have the same results as my first thing. So the discipline and execution is the issue that kills opportunity cost as the reason. And when it comes to discipline, I'd say strategy is the part where it's the bigger issue. Strategy is the part where people can just go in a completely wrong direction of the types of assets to buy, the types of markets to invest in. So I think strategy is the core issue where things get undone. But when it comes to discipline, it's a big part as well for opportunity cost.
Now, D'Angelo, turning to you, you're a partner at Think and Grow. You work closely with founders and leadership teams as they scale, particularly around hiring, structure, performance, new markets. What's taking up most of your attention at the moment?
Yeah, I think, and happy to be here again. Right, so my name is D'Angelo. I'm one of the partners over at Think and Grow. I think it's sort of changed over the years, if I were being very honest, over the last 6 to 12 months. And look, whether it's my business or different type of business, it seems that AI is obviously taking a lot of oxygen in the room these days. You can't go into an executive roundtable and an AI not come up in the first 5 or 10 minutes. So for that simple reason, a lot of our customers, new and pre-existing, are sort of pulling us into projects where it starts with AI literacy. We have a lot of our top clients just sort of coming to us and saying, look, we don't know what we don't know. We don't know what great looks like. We don't know.
Famous Donald Rumsfeld quote.
Yeah, bingo. And so it becomes this self-awareness for them to say, okay, where do we start? What are the right questions that we should be asking? So it's the AI literacy, it's benchmarking AI competency and capability within businesses, because what you're starting to see is you have certain like change agents inside of businesses, whether it's a scale-up or startup, you'll have that 10% of the staff that's sort of using the tools without being asked to. They're dabbling, they're curious, they're experimenting, they're the tinkers in the business. But just because they're the only ones that are doing it, everyone's kind of like, oh, wow, they're the experts. Like we should be learning from them. If you take their skill set and benchmark it with someone else outside of that business or at a competing business, you'll maybe only give them a report card of like, say, a 2 out of 10 or a 3 out of 10. So we're doing a lot of benchmarking to make sure that businesses know there's like your kiddie pool, kind of like toddler pool here. Then you have your Michael Phelps, like lap pool. Like even your tinkers, where do those folks fall into? Are they closer to belonging to the kiddie pool, or are they closer to Michael Phelps, where they're hitting those butterfly laps and absolutely crushing it? Because if you're centering your entire business around tinkers thinking they are a Michael Phelps when really they're not, and they have so much more training that's needed and more assessment needed, then you're just setting yourself up for failure.
Can you give us an example, D'Angelo, of how your business works with other companies?
Yep. So the best way of thinking and grow is we de-risk international expansion. So the way we work, we tend to work with founders that are scaling internationally for the first time, or maybe they did it before and they just weren't very proud of how they did it. Maybe they spent too much capital and had to raise more. So the way that we work is essentially there's a few tools that help de-risk international expansion. It starts at a market research level. So we're kind of coming in and prioritizing which geographies make sense first and why. So we're doing a lot of go or no-go strategies. We're coming in and sort of unpicking the leadership team. Do you have the right generals on this leadership team to actually be able to take that journey overseas? And if you don't, can they get coached to becoming the right people? Or do you need to just kind of throw them out with the bathwater and start over completely new? We spend a lot of time designing their partnership motions and their channel sales motions into new geos. So having sort of resellers and potential ways of selling into that market before you have full boots on the ground. We do so. These are some of the general ways across sort of, again, market research, exec search where it's needed, building out the right channel sales motions and partnership models into new geos, and helping essentially these founders and businesses hopefully win their first dollar revenue without having a physical footprint, and then sort of scaling around that.
And so what would you say is the biggest thing that actually breaks as companies scale?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that breaks is companies will scale. They'll look at their engineering teams predominantly. And things that break is when you assess that engineering team, a lot of the businesses that we do work are tech first, tech enabled businesses. And the common issue that comes about is the engineering velocity. And we're hitting this new figure, whether it's 20 million in revenue, 50 million in revenue, 100 million, 500 million annual revenue. But we're feeling our engineering team is just not doing as much as they should be, right? Do we need to hire more engineers? Do we need to have tools that come in and sort of offset the workload or supplement the workload to helping us get to our engineering targets? Do we have to come in and assess the caliber? Mm-hmm. So it tends to be the first thing that gets called into question, and we're on a few projects right now at the moment where we're coming in and doing a full audit on why engineering velocity sits where it sits. I think the other thing that tends to break as well is when you have funding that hits the bank, if it's a Series A, if it's a Series B, if it's a Series C, you tend to see very ambitious founders sometimes scale into different markets all at the same time. Mm-hmm. They'll pick 3 or 4 markets and go all at once. So where you see things break is you have cash flow going out because you decided to expand to Taiwan, South Korea, and Vietnam all at once instead of just getting it right. Maybe like start with Vietnam and then kind of go bigger after that. So we tend to pull back ambitious founders saying, look, it's going to break fast and it's going to be an expensive break. There's some markets where it's very costly to get it wrong. There's some markets where, your brand does get tainted for a couple of years if you scale in ambitiously but without the right strategy. People don't forget, right? And if they use your service once and then realize 6 months later you're not in existence anymore, and then you try again in 2 or 3 years later, it's just going to be a much steeper curve.
So you're working with companies all over the globe. Mm-hmm. Is there a particular mistake that you see time and again?
Yep.
That's always being made?
Yes.
No matter the geography or the population, what would that be?
I'd say there's 2 big mistakes when it comes to that. I'd say the one common issue we sometimes see is businesses that sort of build the product around the customer. And when I kind of mention that, it's, say their market has generally been small to medium size, and then they win that big enterprise deal. And they're like, holy cow, these guys are paying significantly more. We now need to shift our entire product to now suit enterprise grade customers. So they're revamping their entire product team, engineering team, their workflows to suddenly overnight start to cater for a size of customer that wasn't part of the original playbook. But because they're being led in by dollar bills, I'm just going to say it, then they kind of delude themselves into thinking it's sustainable to scale with sort of that mentality and that methodology. I'd say the other issue, whether we're supporting businesses scaling out of the US into Australia into the US, or from either market into parts of Europe, into parts of UK, parts of Middle East, the most common thing, hands down, is founders, co-founders hiring their entire team from only people that they know. So this used to work back in the day. I think there was a time when it did make a lot of sense if you're bootstrapping to hire your friends.
Yes.
But where we tend to find with a lot of the founders, they ignore major red flags or major yellow flags. There's blind spots when you're hiring people that came through a friend of a friend, or as a direct friend, or someone you went to school with, or someone you went to church with, or someone you know from this networking event. So you have a lot of founders that will not exhaust the secondary or tertiary networks and go after merit-based hiring versus relationship-based hiring. And we see roles that should be taken on by different kinds of leaders get just passed on to the cousin or the best man at the wedding, or this and that. And where we tend to see it break would generally be around that Series B standpoint, when they're going for a larger round of funding, or they're going for larger customers, or they're pushing for a liquidity event, whether it's getting acquired or whether it's listing. And then we come in and do these talent audits and these capability assessments, and we have to have a very tough conversation with that CEO and founder and say, hey, I'm sure you gave the perfect best man speech out of anyone, but if you keep him in this CTO or VP of engineering slot any longer, it's going to be at your own peril. So those would be the biggest things that, regardless of geos, tend to be a recurring problem.
And just to follow up on that founder issue, at what point does a founder need to step back or walk away from the business, and why do you think so many get that wrong?
Yeah, it's a good one. That's a spicy one. I like it. So look, it takes a great deal of humility and self-awareness for a CEO and founder who's been on that journey, in a garage or in a small office somewhere for the last 7 or 10 years, to raise their hand and say, I'm the reason that this company is not going to get to where it needs to go. I'm the reason that's going to hold us back more years than it needs to be held back to getting to this major event. I think the founders that do have that awareness, they're the ones that know their limitations better than anyone else, right? If it's someone that's really good at the day-to-day versus someone that's really good at going out there and winning new customers, or maybe someone that's really good at cap raising, they can be excellent at storytelling with VCs and with sovereign funds to collect money. But when it comes to the other parts of running a business, i.e., again, the day-to-day, the tactical stuff that's on the ground, that's where they kind of let themselves down. So you'd be surprised. I'd say it's half the time the founder has that realization and raises their hand, and we have that honest conversation with them. The other half the time, it is the lead investors. It's the VCs that come and knock on our door and say, hey, look, we want to slot in. And they're quite tactical, right? They'll say, we need to slot in a group CEO, right? To kind of come in and manage some more of the portfolios, including this one. So it's sort of a softer sell to this founder. But the VCs, lead investors, will come in and say, hey, look, can you just put some solid types of CVs and resumes in front of us to validate our thesis that maybe this isn't the right founder anymore. And we'll do this the same with the founders in those businesses.
Yes.
Say, hey, look, what dollar sign do you need to get to for you to want to step away from this business, right? Preserving your equity, preserving your stake, put a number on this piece of paper that says I can walk away from this business tomorrow and keep it in responsible hands. Not every founder is willing to give us that number, we tend to find.
I bet.
But when we do kind of build that trust and rapport with them and show them that there are some CEOs with the scar tissue and with the battery to keep going and have had multiple exits, taking businesses through to IPO or through to getting acquired, it makes it a softer conversation, but still a fair bit of the time, it's 12 to 18 month journey on either inceptioning the idea to the founder of wanting to walk away, or brute force coming in and the VCs and the lead investors saying it's you don't have a say in this.
Arjun, I can see you nodding here to D'Angelo. Have you got some thoughts on that?
Yeah, I firstly feel like it's a different world to some of the businesses, we're scaling and growing, but there's very similarities, and a lot of similarities there in terms of, knowing the point in which someone else can do a better job, right? What I feel sometimes happens on this pathway is that quite often the CEO role as well can be misunderstood, and founders who are growing, they initially think that their CEO role stays the same as they grow. And so give you an example, when you were that first year or second or third year, you were, in most cases, probably doing a lot of everything. And so then what happens is this I do everything is tattooed to you. And so even if you do get the layers of reporting, the layers of leadership, the layers of growth, and you grow, there still tends to be this I do everything approach. And so what you've just done is like, you might have hired divisional specialists, and whether it be ops, marketing, sales, and so forth. But what ends up happening is that you're just doing the same, divide my time across every part of this company quite equally. When really, I think, as time's gone on, and I'm now in 8 years of sort of doing what we do, and we're multiple 8 figures in annual revenue, and well over 100 staff members, and we're continuing to grow, and we've been growing at 50% plus per annum for 7 to 8 years in a row now. So I think of this journey and I'm just like, the biggest impacting moments have been when I was able to prioritize the most important constraint, live in that singular constraint, let there be some smoke, let others be trusted to support and go through that smoke that's there. And maybe I could have handled it slightly better. Maybe I couldn't have. You'll never know. But there needs to be that smoke that gives someone the opportunity to either take care of it and go, hey, it's all good over here on aisle 4. Cleanup's cleaned up. Don't worry about it. But the main thing is if I'm singularly on the most important constraint, then I really peel back the CEO role. It's like my ability to identify the most important constraint, my ability to have decision-making and judgment that makes the best decision to handle that biggest constraint, and my ability to block out noise and other things that are happening to put more time and effort, because no matter if you're a trillionaire, billionaire, millionaire, whatever, you only have the same 24 hours in the day. So blocking out the noise to handle that same constraint. So I find like all of those key things that D'Angelo mentioned are centered around, finding that right person, which I think is important. But once that right person's found, or if it is the founder, like, hey, you better be on that most important constraint. That's kind of my thoughts. Yeah.
So a question to both of you, and it sort of leans into your response there. You're both operating at a very high level, albeit in different arenas. What do great operators and great investors actually have in common?
I think a great operator and great investor, what they should have in common that would make them great in their own right, I think is having kind of walked or run the hard miles. If we're looking at investors, what was their track record before joining a VC or launching their own VC? Was it a one-shot sort of win and they said, okay, I'll take the lane into VC world? Or do they have a pattern of having done this before at different inflection points too, and coming on, not just as founder, but parachuting in as a CEO and turning around businesses? And then operators as well. I think a good operator is someone that can kind of zoom in, at an insane granular level and sort of have the ability to sort of make tweaks, those 1% tweaks on certain parts of the business that overall collect when it's all said and done. And someone that, of course, can zoom out and be holistic in their approach and kind of see the overall strategy and what parts need to be prioritized day 180, 360. I think if those two things exist in both, someone knows how to walk the hard miles, run the hard miles, having done it multiple times, would then lead into becoming a great investor and vice versa.
Yeah, some really good points there. That's battle scars, right? Like I think the battle scars there are just so important to have, because usually when someone's working in the modern era and they're about to try something new, whether it be AI, tech, marketing, all these new things that are happening, the world's moving so fast. It's you. Whatever's happening that's new in this world is like a slight variance of something that's already happened. And so most chances are when they have the experience, the battle scars, they have that understanding of what the variance it is. Like example, when someone, in the investing world, this is the Uber of, that, right? The traditional term that happens.
Yes.
But then, someone might not know the Uber, right? Like how did that big business grow, the story, right? So that's where the battle scars and experience happen. If I break down operator investor in my thoughts though, what I'm finding more and more, if I'm talking business investor, not property investor,
Yes.
on the business investor part, it's being in the right rooms in the right places and with the right people at the right time, right? And I feel like that is underestimated so much. I think of some of the investments I've had my hands in, or the investments I currently have my hands in, or even just others who I've met along the way and they've shared success stories. I'm like, wow, what a cool story. A lot of it was like where you were. The right place, the right relational capital, if we want to call it, right? The door that opened, the friend that invited you in. Like, you can't underestimate that. And I feel like I have no science or math on this, but I have this inner feeling that tells me the people aspects of it can, most cases, outweigh the analytical aspects of it. And there could be some brilliant number pickers, but the person who happened to be in the right rooms with the right people at the right times and just was able to have the right doors open can win in some pretty special ways. If I come to the operator part, 3 words always keep coming to my mind. And the first one is culture. The second one is standards. And the third one's a 2-part word, change management. And so when I think of operators, it's firstly, a company to go from A to B usually has to just level up some sort of standard in everything that they're doing. So someone who can recognize there's higher levels to it, someone who can basically go, your standards are too low and call it out, someone who can basically stretch the mindset of what possibilities there are because they've seen or been in those standards that need to be higher. That's the first part. But then it's not going to go anywhere unless you're a brilliant change manager. And then it's not going to go anywhere unless the culture in the team and the organization that you're building as an operator is going to respond well, is going to stay true to those standards that you're trying to build, going to see the why, the vision and values behind it. So when I think about the most successful operators I've seen, they just have a knack with trying to be able to go, look, I can see the standards and where they are and where they could be, and I want to make sure this whole company lives to the where they could be. I want to make sure I don't break the company in enforcing and applying these standards. So that's change management, and people are wanting to be in that journey. And then I have the culture. It's that people can attract a lot more people because usually, whether it's people or technology, like people is a core part of any business that's going to grow, and we're going to need to make sure we're all on the journey together, and there's that culture that sticks. So that's my operator definition of what really is the most successful operators. It's standards, culture, and change management. And then when it comes to the investors, I think it's a lot less picking when it comes to businesses, and it's a lot more like, hey, build out your network and be in the right places at the right time.
Speaking of which, you are both members of the Pillars in Sydney, literally around the corner. You mentioned being in the right room at the right time with the right people. What was it? A question to you both. What was it that attracted you to this space, and what is it that you like about being a member of the Pillars?
Yeah. So I think what attracted me to this space is very simple in the sense that I used to be part of a club back in Singapore, so I'm fairly new to Australia. I just passed the 1-year mark. Woo, one year down in Sydney. It's been great. I'm still enjoying it, loving it here. But there was a concept like this back in Singapore called the Mandela Club. So I get here and I realized there was nothing like what I was used to back in Singapore. There was no space for sort of professionals, whether you're in finance, in tech, whether you're a founder, whether you're an exec, whether you're a thought leader or in the creative space. There's nothing like that here. And luckily, I'm friends with Jonathan Liu, who's based in Singapore, kind of said, look, I'm building something exciting that kind of fills a gap for what you need here in the Sydney market. And he's delivered on it, right? I think it's perfect timing. Only a few months, probably 3 months after I moved here, the space opened, where it kind of gave me a bit of a sanctuary to be somewhere out of the office, somewhere where you can kind of passively network. And it's kind of like when you go to a certain gym, you kind of see the same person. The first time you say you nod, the second time you say hello, the third time you introduce yourself, and the fourth time you're friends and you're actually like grabbing food or grabbing, a drink together. And that's kind of what the Pillars has been. You kind of like see the same faces around enough time to build that confidence to go say hi and see what's keeping them busy, right? See what challenges they're working through, see what's keeping them up at night. And it's perfect. You have such a good variety in professions at people at different stages of their career. And that's just the fabric of the people there. That's not even talking about the aesthetics. And it feels like these Ivy League alumni halls when you walk in. It's somewhere between like Harvard alumni halls and like Hogwarts. Like for me, like this really cool, perfect description. Like you just feel lucky that you just open this door, on the side of the road, and you don't know this like fantastical space exists inside where you're able to meet these really cool humans doing really different things. So I probably overtook my time here, but that's kind of how I envision and see it.
Yeah, look, they're awesome descriptions. I probably won't be as eloquent in the description of the place as this guy. But what I would say is that our story to kind of knowing about it and everything is through similar people. But the thing that really is the biggest difference maker for me has been the organic and passive way to building relationships. I find, like you said, there hasn't been certain clubs like this in Australia, but for those that have attempted it, they've been too heavy on the business networking piece. And the downside to that is it feels forced. Remember, in every single business, there's a customer that's extremely important to that business owner. And there are team members that are also very important to that business owner. And so when they're that important, this forced collaboration of sharing that such important resource doesn't feel or sit right, because you have an internal responsibility to make sure that whoever you're recommending, that word means something. And so as a result, I find the passive and the organic relationship builds that happen in these environments allow you to not only enjoy the space, but build relationships through the same way that you would build relationships outside of those four walls, which is with time, with testing each other out, with relationships, with good words, with real successes, not just because you're part of a club. And so that's the first part to me that's a big difference maker. The second part is I love to entertain others. I love to make others feel special. As leaders in business, that's what we're here to do for our team. Our team is our customers. And to be able to help my team see and feel this experience as something special, whether it be the meal at the Pillars, whether it be the 5-star service experience, whether it be, I kid you not, the one-on-one in the sauna, whether it be the one-on-one in the cold plunge shivering, trying to talk to each other about it, whether it be that drink after a Friday to sit down and just unwind and talk to someone. The main thing is we are, in whatever business you're in the people business. And, you may be product, service, technology, whatever it may be, but there are people who help you make your mission and take it to new heights. There are people that help your end customer. There are people that are your customers. And so when you get to have moments to bring them in, enjoy the space, when you have moments to celebrate those special values display, the vision push that someone's on, and they made that difference that week or to that customer, and they see that as a reward and incentive to be with you in these buildings, in these walls, experience it. Like there's a special feeling to just seeing someone else feel special. So that's some of the biggest reasons for me.
And so do you think people often underestimate how important environment is?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. You often hear it amongst the whole sayings of you are who you're surrounded by, right? You are who you're with. And if you're with your customer, with your team, and then within the space that has the caliber of entrepreneurs here, has the caliber of, professionals there, what ends up happening is that you just realize, you just go, hold on a minute. Did from start to the end of my day, was it meeting my team, meeting end clients, and meeting highly successful and high calibered operators in their own fields? In what moment of the day? Because remember, the Pillars just isn't during the day. It's also the evenings. It's also the early mornings if you're in there. It's also can be the weekends depending on, what's on. So what happens is you audit your time and you realize you've spent it around nothing but people of caliber, people of skill, people of lived experience, and your team, your business, your customers. And so the more and more in time that you put out to areas outside of a high caliber relationship, is the more time in areas that may pull you down mentally, your expansion of thinking, and your ability to just, see that next breakthrough idea. So environment means everything, whether it be where you live and the environment and how that can help your health, whether it be the environment and, how much you probably go for those extra steps with the weather in certain parts of the world. it's proof, right? Or whether it be the environment and what you do in business. And I think it's just it's a big difference maker. And you know what? Like, I'll just speak about myself here, but I've used the sauna more than I've ever had before, just because it's right there.
Yeah,
right.
Fantastic.
I've used whiteboard sessions more than I have before, because the boardroom's right there. Right. It's got these things available. I've had, more moments than ever before to actually have workshop time, because we might have some of my team members come down and use the space, or we might collaborate with another business and go up to a room and actually workshop stuff. We're usually to yourself in your office, you're on your screen, you're on your desk, and you're just zoned in. And there's moments where you should have that. But there's also moments that you realize you can't collaborate unless there's an environment that brings that out of you. So, yeah.
So a final question to both of you. What does being in a room like the Pillars give you that you don't get or can't get elsewhere?
Yeah, I would say to Arjun's point, all my external meetings, they take place inside the Pillars, right? And my day spent meeting with VC partners and principals, with founders and CEOs and high stake individuals. And I think what it gives me is sort of an environment of seriousness. Like, I respect you enough to pull you out of your office and host you at a space, like neutral territory, but it's really my territory, but neutral territory somewhere between our offices, to break bread or to have coffee or have a juice or chill in the sauna. And, I get the same reaction every time I have clients for the first time stepping foot into that building. They're just all amazed, and they're all just shocked at how stunning it all is. And I've really exhausted myself running up and down the stairs showing them every floor. So I just kind of draw them a map. I'm like, go check out the sauna on this floor and go check out the cold plunges here. But it's given me a space to really impress prospective clients. I can't get that in the offices we have now. I really can't. They're really just generic, sort of like cookie cutter offices, like, not dissing them, but I feel like the Pillars sort of gives that gasping moment for them to take you a little bit more serious, or at least feel appreciated. And the last thing I'll kind of finish off there with is, I run different professional communities, and I host all of my community events there. And one community I'm super proud of having built is the Chief of Staff Society, which is the largest network of Chief of Staffs in the ABJ region. It's about 165 members between Singapore and Sydney and Melbourne as well. And the Chief of Staff, they're the key advisors to the CEO and founders. They're the right-hand men and women helping with decision-making velocity and helping businesses propel themselves forward. So we'll do our meetups, our quarterly meetups in there, and they're always like, oh, good environment, good charcuterie, good staff. And you need that, you sometimes need that gravitas with certain individuals. Yeah. That's it.
Look, for me, it's just experiences. It's just little experiences. And I'm going to go into some micros now, but you can have a coffee at a cafe, or you can have a coffee that's consistently there with a smile, the extra sparkling water on the side, the extra little cookie, the extra little check-in afterwards to see if you needed anything else. And again, this isn't for me. It's for that person who I'm with to get the most special treatment that they deserve. And the building that we're in. And so, like, all these little things add up. Suddenly a workshop session can turn onto a knock on the door in the boardroom upstairs, and it turns into, shall we bring some food in? And it's like, hey, what turned into just a workshop session has now turned into a full whiteboard journey map thought, brainstorming session, and steaks are appearing. And so it's like, it's
never a bad thing.
Never a bad thing, right? I guess the main thing I just want to finish on there, it's just experiences. Like, I just feel like you can't create these little moments and experiences. And the feeling that someone gets, we've had some of Australia's, leading cricketers who are some of our clients, and invited them to the Pillars. And like, when we're not there in other spaces, sure, they'll message, hey, it was a great time to catch up and good to see you again, and things like that. But when they message this time around, like, what a cool spot. Like, man, loved that. The service was great. The experience was great. The tartare was amazing, right? Like, or the key lime pie was to die for, whatever the thing is, right? But the main thing here, I'm just saying, is the experiences make moments, and those moments are what life really is. It's like, as long as someone else can have that feel good moment, that's what life is for me. It's like just seeing your success, your happiness. It's like, it feels good.
Gentlemen, Arjun, D'Angelo, thank you so much for your time, your insights today. Great to catch up with you, and we wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Cheers.